Good morning, everybody. Today is December 4th at 9:08 a.m., and we're at a pretty important point for Bitcoin. And I'm also going to be looking at some of the past price action to see how Bitcoin responds during previous SPY pullbacks. Now, we're, like I said, at a pretty pivotal point for Bitcoin. So we can see here the downtrend. Looks like the downtrend could be potentially broken. What we don't know is this a reversal extension? Was this that bottoming type action with that V-shaped recovery like we have seen many times previously? The problem with calling a reversal extension is it's kind of hard to say when the reversal extension is until it's already happened. So you could have looked at this day and say, oh, this is the reversal extension potentially, but you can also see that when a high volume comes in, sometimes that does not necessarily mean that that's the final reversal extension. Sometimes it can continue, especially if it starts getting rejection from previous resistance, or like we're going to see if the SPY is not behaving. That can also drive the price down. So right now we are having a bit of a relief rally. It looks like we were it was a lot of volume down. Now we're coming back up, and you can see that we are forming under resistance. So on the previous video that I talked about a couple days ago, we hit the 20-day as resistance, and we got rejected, and we had this sharp high volume pullback from the 20-day. But the following day, we saw the buyers step back in and drive and rally the price all the way back up to the 20-day. But you can see that the 20-day acted as resistance again. Then we had another high volume day that broke above the 20-day, but we can also see that it started to face some resistance. So the volume was high, but price did not break that great. And today you can see that we are having a low volume inside day because price is trying to figure out where are we going to go from here. Now, why this is very pivotal is because in relation to the SPY, what we can see is the SPY is coming up to a pretty key pivot point. So you can see we had that high volume break below the 50-day, and then we had over here we had this high volume, but it was this doji candle, so price couldn't really decide where it wanted to go. And then the following day, the following days, we've seen that volume is decreasing while price is also starting to increase. We broke through this downtrend line, and then we came up to this resistance, and we came up to this resistance multiple times now. You can see that the pre-market is above the resistance, which is good, but now we need to decide, are we going to stay up here or are we going to shoot back down? Now, this is important because if we want to see this trend continue, then we want to see it clear this resistance, and we'd also want to see it start to put in a higher high. But if we start putting in these lower highs, then that is not good for the stage that we're in. So I updated the stage analysis to be a little bit more clear on the SPY so we can see exactly where we are. So let's just confirm, because on this day we were saying, hey, this is some stage 3 early topping sign action, high 50-day break of the 50-day on heavy volume. That is pretty stage 3 early topping sign. So let's try and figure out by going through the checklist here. Now, again, this is based on Stan Weinstein's stage analysis, just broken down so we can see the differentiations of each of the phases of a stage. So over here, we have price action becomes wide and loose. So price has started to become more wide, more loose, starting over here when we had that break of the 20-day on high volume. You can see that was really kind of the big change of character when price started to become more wide and loose. Price breaks below the 50-day. We can see that right over there. Price breaks below the 50-day. stock becomes overextended, this is where I would want to go back and start to look at the different cycles and see how far away we are from the 200-day and what would be considered overextended. But just visually kind of looking at this, that seems pretty overextended to me. Volume fades on the breakouts. We could see that volume is starting to dry. Here's a breakout, volume kind of going lower. And then we can also see that on the down days, volume is also increasing. So more distribution on those down days, on those heavy down days. 200-day flattens. We don't see the 200-day flattening yet. And then good news no longer creates new highs. Again, I struggle to follow the news, so I'm a little more uncertain about that. Stage 3 confirmed topping. So price resistance forms near prior highs. So we are coming up to this prior high. We need to see if there's resistance to that prior high. This is also another. This was a lower high, and now we're the pre-market is above it. So we are going to see if price actually breaks through that or not, and continues. Erratic price action above and below moving averages. We can see that price is starting to become erratic above it, erratic below it. Before, we could see that the trend was clearly on the 20-day, and now the 20-day is not holding as that support. I think my kid just fell. All right. Sorry, I just got a little distracted there. Erratic price action, lower highs form within a trading range, so that's why we're looking at this key area right here. Our lower highs forming. The 50-day moving average now acts as resistance. We have not seen that yet. Break below the 200-day. We haven't seen this yet. So you can see the stage 3 confirmed. We don't have as many boxes checked off on this being a stage 3. So really what we're looking for is price going to start going sideways, causing the 200-day to go flat? Is volume going to continue to spike on the down days? And are we going to fail? Are we going to start creating and start checking off more of these stage 3 confirmed topping, like resistance forming near prior highs? Or are we going to start getting a lot more resistance? Is the 50-day going to start acting as resistance? So really, when this starts flattening and we start going more sideways, it would take quite a lot for us to drive back down to the 200-day. So we could clearly see that way we are in a stage 3 if we're getting down here. But right now we're just trying to see, is this the distribution? Is this the early topping where now price is flattening and volume is spiking on down days, failing to lift price, resistance forming? So that is what we're looking for. If we start getting rejected from up here because we had this rally, now what's important is how is Bitcoin going to react in response to this? So that's what I would like to look at next. One thing that I was looking at some of the on-chain data and the liquidation for Bitcoin. This is something I'm on the 2-week time frame here, so you can see that we have a lot of liquidation area below this 85 range. So between 80 and 85, we have some heavy area that could lead to another liquidation cascade. But on the other side, if price breaks above this 95 range, that looks pretty good for creating a squeeze up. So a long or a short squeeze to close to that 100K range. So we could see right around there is around the 98K range. So right underneath that 100K support, that major support. So we have quite a while to go. You can see here the gap between the 90 and 84K is pretty empty. We do have some some shorts or some longs that could be liquidated here, but less. It's a lot less close than if we were to just rally up. So this is an important point, because we could start to find that support at that 100K range, but that really just depends on the market sentiment. If SPY starts reacting negatively, and this is again especially important because we just had this relief rally back up to this resistance, but if it starts rejecting it, because we could see that price is getting really tight here, it's maybe it's not going to be able to break through, and if it fails and it drives back down, then we could see Bitcoin fail and drive back down. And like I said, if we start getting to this area over here, we have another liquidation area down to the 80K range again. So we could drive price back down, and then that would not be good for Bitcoin. So that is some of the important update. Now, like I said, I wanted to look and see how SPY is reacting, or how Bitcoin reacts around SPY. So I recently did another little project here where I started looking at the Bitcoin stage analysis with SPY. And what I wanted to do here was to see what happens with Bitcoin during these different stages, different phases, different stages within the cycle, and how SPY reacts, or how SPY influences this. So let's just start with our cycle 5 stage 2 uptrend with Bitcoin. So we can see that cycle 5 started while the SPY was in a stage 1 base. So this is the stage 1 base for SPY. This chart back here is SPY, and then we can see Bitcoin over here. And I colored the box where Bitcoin, this is when the stage 2 started. And the stage 2 technically continues because these areas are the distribution areas. So everything technically over here is Bitcoin stage 2 all the way until we get to right here. So when we get to right here, that's the Bitcoin stage 5, cycle 4. Right there. So, and all of these are distribution areas. All of these areas in between are these breakout areas where Bitcoin was breaking out. So Bitcoin would break out, and then it would distribute. Bitcoin would break out, and then it would distribute. So that just continues to happen all the way up. So going back to 2023, or 2023, we could see SPY was in stage 1, and Bitcoin led the SPY. Bitcoin was leading SPY, started its stage 2 uptrend while SPY was in a stage 1 base. And then we had this short rally, and then we started to distribute. So Bitcoin led early, but then it distributed also early. And then you can see almost around the same time that the SPY started its stage 2 uptrend, that Bitcoin also had a breakout. Bitcoin had the breakout, and then it had this long distribution zone. So this was a long distribution, multiple months. But we can also see that the SPY was not entirely ready to continue its rally. You can see that around the same time that this distribution was happening with Bitcoin, SPY also started to pull back, and we had an extended period of time where SPY, some 3 months, where SPY was pulling back. And then we had this cut underneath the 200-day, the long term. And then this is really when the SPY started its clean, I'm calling it the clean stage 2 uptrend, because we could see that it started respecting the much shorter time frame EMA, We have the 5, looks like the 5 EMA there. Let me color this one. Color it green. So it was respecting the 5 EMA really well all the way up, and it used the 20-day as support. And around that same time that the SPY started this move, you can also see that Bitcoin led it a little bit early. Bitcoin started its breakout, and SPY bottomed and then started its breakout for its stage 2. Bitcoin had a little consolidation, but then it continued with another breakout. SPY also didn't really ever have this consolidation. Maybe you could say right here was a little consolidation, but then it just continued on. Over here, what's interesting is we could see that Bitcoin went through distribution area. At the same time, SPY also started to get a little bit choppy. So we could say that this was more of that started getting more of that late stage 2 action over here. And it continued kind of weak, started getting sloppy. Bitcoin has one more little breakout. This was the presidential breakout. So where Bitcoin made a last push, and then it started getting really choppy. You could see Bitcoin started distributing, and then you can also see over here that SPY went into this stage 4, this stage 4 move, but it was a pretty short term. It wasn't a long stage 4, a longer drawn out stage 4 like we've seen in the past. Like over here, this is not the same. This is more of a stage 4 within a stage 2 uptrend. Could it have been an extended? Sure, but we had this V-shaped recovery. Buyers step back in, they drive the price back up, and then we continue on with our stage 2 uptrend. And this was kind of the temporary, the little reset in this longer term stage 2 uptrend for the SPY, and then you can see that it started respecting the 5 EMA really well, basically resetting the stage cycle with this pullback. So that distribution helped to continue this recent move over the past year. So Bitcoin started distributing back over here. So Bitcoin had its breakout moment, and then it started distributing again, and then Bitcoin entered into that stage 4. You can also see that Bitcoin entered the stage 4 when the SPY started also getting a bit more late stage, so more 2B. As we can see, the SPY starting to get a little bit loose over here. So that is for cycle 5. If we were to go back, the problem with Bitcoin is when you start going back to the previous cycles, the data it's just a little bit, it's harder to use that data, like in 2021, for example, because this was a much different time for Bitcoin. This was a really interesting time in the market when everything was ripping. So I'm sorry. During this 2021 cycle, things were getting a little wild here. But if we just look and zoom out and see SPY, this is SPY stage 2 uptrend, and we can see what Bitcoin was doing during this time. So Bitcoin was in a stage 4 decline before the SPY went into a stage 4 decline. When the SPY was in a stage 4 decline, Bitcoin was also in a stage 4 decline. Bitcoin started breaking out while the SPY was in stage 4. Bitcoin did this V-shaped recovery. This was the COVID crash, and started at stage 2. Over here, if we look at what happened over here, Bitcoin started its distribution and its stage 4 before the SPY started its stage 4 decline. So to me, when I look at that, Bitcoin leads SPY in when it starts distributing. If we go back some more, let's look at another stage 4 decline for Bitcoin. So again, we're at the end of the stage 2 uptrend for SPY. Bitcoin started its stage 3 topping before the SPY rolled over into stage 3. And then when the SPY was in stage 3, Bitcoin was in stage 4. When SPY was in stage 4, Bitcoin was also in stage 4, but we can again see Bitcoin started at stage 1 basing early before the SPY entered at stage 2. Now, the difference with this cycle is that Bitcoin was in an extended stage 1 base while the SPY was recovering from this correction. But you can also see as soon as the SPY made it above the 200-day and it started to look like, okay, maybe this is a longer term rally, then Bitcoin started its stage 2 uptrend. But then the SPY, this was not a very strong cycle, stage 2 move for SPY. And then we can see that Bitcoin was unsure. Bitcoin says, okay, this does not seem good to me. And then we went into it was a very short-term move, and this was also not a very powerful move for Bitcoin. And then we started distributing with Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin entered stage 4 before the SPY went into its stage 4. And we can go back and we can see every single cycle, Bitcoin typically enters into its stage 4 before the SPY enters into its stage 4. And over here in cycle 1, so this is even back in 2014, Bitcoin was in a stage 1 base while SPY was topping and while it entered into a stage 4. And then Bitcoin started its stage 2 uptrend, but was in a distribution area while this was all going on in the SPY stage 4. SPY started its stage 2 uptrend. It started that reversal extension, that V-shaped double bottom recovery. And then Bitcoin started its cycle 2, which led into the 2017 cycle. So based on what we see with the SPY and how Bitcoin reacts around it, we can see that Bitcoin is always leading the SPY in relation to where the next stage is typically going. And what's also interesting is that Bitcoin typically has an extended stage 4 through the stage 3 topping and through the stage 4 for the SPY. But what we also see is that Bitcoin starts to change its trend before the SPY changes its trend. So Bitcoin is the leading indicator for where the market is typically going. Now, is this something that we can trade? No, because we are looking for the setups, we're looking for the performance, but this can tell us where we are. This can help to give us some more confluences around where we are in the cycle. And based on Bitcoin's past performance of how it's reacted in relation to the SPY, we can say that when Bitcoin is in its stage 4, like it is right now, and if it continues that way, then SPY is going to continue its distribution, and then SPY will go sideways, and Bitcoin will maybe continue to go through its stage 4. Bitcoin might go through a stage 1 base, or it goes straight into a stage 2 uptrend again, leading SPY. So, I hope that this analysis helps to give a little bit more clarity on what may happen based on Bitcoin as a indicator for what happens typically in relation to the SPY. So that's it for this video, and talk with you all in the next one.